In the sun-drenched expanse of the African savanna, where the sky stretched in an endless azure dome and the earth breathed a fiery red, lay a small, unassuming village. Its name, though rarely uttered beyond its borders, was Kumbungu, a place of deep traditions and simple rhythms. Here, life moved with the deliberate pace of the sun traversing the sky, each day marked by the crow of the rooster, the murmur of women grinding maize, and the distant hum of insects in the tall grass. Mud brick homes, their thatched roofs woven from the bounty of the land, clustered together like a family, offering refuge from the fierce midday heat and the cool, star-dusted nights.
Within this tranquil world lived Kofi, a boy whose spirit was as boundless as the horizon he gazed upon daily. His eyes, the color of rich earth, held an uncommon curiosity, always searching, always questioning. He was known throughout Kumbungu, not just for his playful energy, which led him and his friends on endless adventures through the thorny acacia groves, but for a kindness that radiated from him like the morning sun. He'd share his last piece of roasted yam, comfort a crying child, or tirelessly fetch water from the communal well for his elders. His days were a tapestry of simple joys, the thrill of a foot race with his inseparable friends Jengo and Malaika, the quiet satisfaction of helping his mother, Aya, weave intricate patterns into baskets, and the shared laughter that echoed through their tiny hut as dusk painted the sky in fiery hues. Life in Kumbungu was undoubtedly hard, carved out of a land that demanded respect and resilience, but it was honest, uncomplicated, and imbued with the deep, comforting rhythm of community. Every elder had a story, every sunrise a promise, and Kofi absorbed it all, a sponge of innocence in a world that felt eternally safe.
The safety of Kumbungu, however, was about to be challenged. One sweltering afternoon, the air thick with the scent of dust and distant rain, Kofi was by the village well, drawing water, his small muscles straining with the effort. His friends had wandered off, chasing a brightly plumed bird, leaving him in a moment of solitary labor. It was then that she appeared, Abena. She was an outsider, new to Kumbungu, her presence a jarring note in the village's harmonious melody. The villagers had whispered about her for days, their voices hushed, their eyes darting away from her stark, almost unsettling beauty. Her clothes, though once finely woven, were now tattered, clinging to a lean frame, and her eyes, like deep, shadowed pools, seemed to hold secrets as vast and ancient as the savannah itself. She walked with an unnatural grace, almost gliding over the rough earth, and a peculiar silence seemed to fall in her wake. The whispers that trailed her, like a dark cloak, spoke of strange powers, of a touch that could wither, a gaze that could bind.
Abena's haunting gaze found Kofi, an innocent bright spark against the dimness she carried. A smile, slow and deliberate, stretched across her lips, a smile that seemed to hide more than it revealed, a promise laced with an unspoken threat. Her voice, when she spoke, was a sweet siren's call, a melody that seemed to echo through the still hot air, bypassing Kofi's ears and settling directly into the curious corners of his mind. "My hands are parched from the journey, little one," she purred, extending a slender, elegant hand, her fingers long and tapered. "Will you offer a kindness? Lick my fingers." Kofi, caught in the strange allure of her gaze and the unusual request, hesitated for only a heartbeat. He had been taught to be kind to strangers, to offer succor. Yet, something in the air, a faint metallic tang he couldn't name, pricked at the edge of his awareness. But his natural curiosity, always a guiding force, outweighed his nascent unease. Intrigued
and utterly unaware of the danger that lurked beneath her seemingly benign request, Kofi leaned forward. His tongue, tentative and innocent, brushed against her outstretched digits. A strange chill like a spider crawling over his skin shot through him, followed by a fleeting taste, bitter and sweet all at once, like forgotten moonlight and dried blood. Then, just as quickly, it was gone, leaving only a faint tremor in his small body. Abena's smile widened, a flicker of something dark dancing in her eyes, and she turned and drifted away as silently as she had come.
From that moment, it was as if an invisible oppressive veil had been drawn over Kumbungu. The vibrant pulse of the village began to falter, replaced by a creeping dread. Strange occurrences, insidious at first, quickly escalated into undeniable calamities. Overnight, fields of maize, once tall and green, withered into brittle husks, their kernels shrunken and black. The healthy, plump goods, the lifeblood of many families, began to sicken, their bodies wasting away, their cries mournful in the still nights. Children, once boisterous and carefree, fell into listless fevers, their laughter replaced by weak whimpers. The whispers of malevolent spirits, once dismissed as old wives' tales, grew louder with each passing day, carried on the very wind that now seemed to carry a chill even in the height of summer.
The villagers, their fear morphing into suspicion, turned their weary eyes towards the newcomer, Abena. They sought guidance from their revered elders, whose wisdom had always steered them through hardship, and from the village healer, Mama Zawadi, whose knowledge of herbs and ancient remedies was unmatched. But even their combined efforts seemed to hit a wall of impenetrable darkness. The air in Kumbungu grew thick with tension, palpable enough to choke. Friendships frayed under the strain of suspicion, and the once harmonious community began to fracture. Mama Zawadi, her brow perpetually furrowed, spoke of a deep spiritual sickness, a blight that defied her remedies. Kofi, despite his tender age, felt a growing sense of unease that settled deep in his gut. His innate bravery, a quiet strength that often surprised even himself, spurred him to action. He had never been one to be easily swayed by fear or rumor, preferring to seek truth rather than succumb to panic. Driven by an unshakable love for his village and the innocent lives within it, he decided he had to investigate. He began approaching Abena subtly, under the guise of innocent friendship, offering to help her with small chores, bringing her water from the well, anything to spend time in her presence, hoping to uncover the truth behind her enigmatic demeanor and the calamities that had befallen his beloved home. He observed her, noting her strange lack of appetite for traditional food, her preference for solitude, and the unsettling way shadows seemed to deepen around her, even in broad daylight.
The plot thickened with each clandestine observation and whispered conversation Kofi gleaned from the fringes of the village. His investigation, a dangerous game of cat and mouse, slowly unveiled a horrifying truth. Abena was indeed a witch. But she was no ordinary sorceress. She was a being of immense ancient power, one banished from a distant, forgotten land for deeds so nefarious they had shattered kingdoms. She had arrived in Kumbungu not by chance, but with a chillingly deliberate purpose. The prosperity and inherent goodness of the village, the vibrant life force that pulsed through its people, had drawn her like a hungry predator. She sought a new source of energy to fuel her dark arts, the life force of pure souls like Kofi's own. The realization hit Kofi like a physical blow. He wasn't just investigating a village pest, he was marked as her next victim. His courage was tested, stretched to its absolute limit as he faced the terrifying reality that his innocent act of kindness, his simple gesture of licking her fingers, had inadvertently bound him to her insidious will. With each encounter, each forced conversation, he felt Abina's grip tighten around his heart. Her previous sweet smile now felt like a taunt, her shadowed eyes a direct threat. She began to speak in riddles, hinting at the power she held over him, subtly reminding him of the fleeting chill that had passed through him. "The purest essence is the sweetest, Kofi," she'd murmur, a knowing glint in her eyes. "And you, my boy, are a harvest waiting."
Yet, instead of succumbing to the paralyzing grip of fear, Kofi found a deep, unwavering well of courage within himself. It was a courage born not of recklessness, but of desperation and a fierce protectiveness. He began to gather more information, piecing together fragments of old stories, consulting secretly with Mama Zawadi, who, though initially wary, recognized the burgeoning power within the boy. He also found unlikely allies in the most unexpected places, the village outcasts. There was Jide, the quiet basket weaver, whose hands trembled with a secret past, and Nia, a young woman ostracized for her vivid dreams, who sometimes spoke of shadows in the night that mirrored Abena's presence. They too held their own secrets, their own reasons to fear and resent the witch, and in Kofi's unwavering spirit, they found a flicker of hope. Together, they whispered, strategized, and meticulously pieced together the puzzle of Abena's past and her ultimate horrifying goal. As the tension in Kumbungu built to an unbearable crescendo, Kofi unearthed a crucial piece of information, a revelation that became the cornerstone of his daring plan. Abina's immense power, for all its terrifying breadth, was bound by a single, inviolable rule. She could only truly harm those who accepted her offer willingly. This wasn't just about physical contact. It was about the yielding of the soul, the acceptance of her malevolence into one spirit. The initial "lick my fingers" had been a test, an initial binding, but not a full subjugation. This revelation didn't diminish the threat, but it shifted the battlefield. It set the stage for a thrilling, terrifying battle of wits between the cunning, ancient witch and the innocent, yet remarkably resilient boy. Kofi knew he had to act quickly before he or someone else in the village fell prey to Abina's insidious intentions. Time was a rapidly dwindling resource. He meticulously hatched a plan, one that was both clever in its simplicity and breathtaking in its daring. It was a gamble, but the stakes were too high to hesitate. His very life and the lives of those he held dear hung in the balance. His plan was designed not only to defeat Abina, but to expose her true, monstrous nature to the entire village, freeing them from her oppressive curse. The story unfolded with an accelerating pace as Kofi meticulously gathered more concrete evidence of Abina's malevolence. He tracked the spread of the blight, connected it to her movements, and even managed to find a discarded pouch containing strange withered herbs that Mama Zawadi identified as components for dark rituals. He faced betrayal as some fearful villagers, seeking to curry favor with the witch, tried to dissuade him or even reveal his intentions. Danger lurked in every shadow, but Kofi remained steadfast, driven by his profound love for Kumbungu and his unyielding belief in the inherent power of good, a force he felt growing within him with every challenge. He learned the harsh reality that not everyone could be trusted, that fear could twist even the purest hearts, yet this only strengthened his resolve. The climax of the village's torment arrived on a night when the moon was a sliver, barely piercing the oppressive gloom. Kofi, now visibly weary but radiating an almost otherworldly resolve, confronted Abena in a tense standoff in the village square. The entire community, drawn by the palpable tension, surrounded them, their faces etched with terror and a desperate hope. He stood before her, not as a trembling boy,
but as a beacon of courage, his voice firm as he presented his evidence. He spoke of the withered crops, the ailing livestock, the strange fevers, weaving a terrifying narrative of her dark influence. He revealed her true identity, a banished witch, and her horrific intent to consume the souls of the innocent, starting with his own. The villagers, shocked and enraged by the undeniable proof, roared with a collective demand for justice, their fear momentarily eclipsed by fury. But Abena remained unfazed, her confidence a terrifying armor. She laughed, a cold, haunting sound that seemed to drain the warmth from the very air, sending shivers down every spine, including Kofi's. "You think you can stop me?" she sneered, her eyes gleaming with malice. "I have seen empires fall and civilizations crumble. Your village is but a fleeting whisper in the wind, a fleeting taste soon to be devoured." Her words hung heavy, a testament to her ancient power and her absolute certainty of victory. Determined not to let fear win, Kofi did the unimaginable. He challenged Abena to a spiritual duel, a confrontation that would test the strength of his burgeoning courage against her ancient, malevolent magic. He knew that the only true way to defeat her was not through physical force, but by refusing her ultimate offer, by resisting her power with the sheer force of his own pure spirit, even if it meant facing unspeakable horrors. The villagers, now understanding the gravity of the situation, offered their silent collective support, their eyes fixed on their young champion.
The night of the duel arrived, the air crackling with anticipation and a heavy dread. Torches flickered erratically, casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe with unseen forces. Abena and Kofi stood opposite each other in the village square, a sacred space now transformed into an arena of spiritual warfare. Abena extended her hand, her fingers still long and tapered, a macabre echo of their first encounter. "Lick my fingers," she repeated, her voice dripping with an even deeper, more insidious sweetness, her eyes gleaming with an ancient malice. But Kofi remained steadfast, his gaze unwavering, his spirit fortified by the love of his people. Instead, he held out a piece of ripe, sun-kissed mango, its golden flesh a stark contrast to Abena's pallor. It was a symbol of life, of purity, of the vibrant goodness that she could not touch without losing her power. "Taste the sweetness of life," he offered, his voice clear and resonant, a defiant counter to her darkness.
Abena snarled, her facade of beauty crumbling to reveal the twisted, ancient creature beneath. Her skin seemed to ripple, her features contorting with rage. She hurled a barrage of curses and dark spells at Kofi, each one more terrifying than the last. Shadowy tendrils of magic snaked towards him, whispering promises of despair and oblivion. Gusts of freezing wind whipped around him, threatening to tear him from his feet. Phantom images of his worst fears flickered before his eyes. Yet he remained untouched, the simple piece of fruit in his hand, radiating a protective shield around him, deflecting her power. The villagers watched in awe, their breath caught in their throats as he withstood the onslaught, their faith in him growing stronger with each passing moment of his unwavering resilience.
The twist came when Abena, desperate to regain control, to shatter Kofi's defiant spirit, decided to play her final, most potent card. She called upon the malevolent spirits she had been feeding with the village's misfortune, those dark entities that had withered the crops and sickened the livestock. The air grew impossibly cold, and a terrifying illusion manifested around them. The ground trembled beneath their feet, chasms opening to reveal swirling vortexes of shadow and despair. Grotesque disembodied faces screamed from the darkness, their eyes burning with hunger. The villagers cried out in terror, some collapsing to their knees, truly believing the world was ending. But Kofi, though he felt the raw fear threatened to consume him, saw through the deception. His heart pounded, but his mind, honed by Mama Zawadi's teachings and his own pure will, recognized the trickery. He stood firm, the fruit still in hand, and with a voice that now resonated with newfound power, he called upon the ancient benevolent spirits of the land for protection, invoking the names of ancestors and the sacred energies of Kumbungu.
The true battle began then, a spectacle that lit up the night sky in a terrifying, beautiful display. The forces of light and darkness clashed in an epic struggle visible to all. Bolts of pure golden energy, summoned by Kufi and his allies, met the swirling, inky darkness of Abena's magic. The earth trembled violently, groaning under the strain. The villagers watched in awe and horror as the two adversaries danced a macabre waltz, their fates intertwined in a dance of destiny. Kofi, guided by an unseen force, moved with a newfound agility, dodging and deflecting. His courage did not falter. It grew with every passing second. With every step, every beat of his heart, he recited the incantations taught to him by Mama Zawadi, ancient words of protection, of cleansing, of banishment. Each word was a beacon of hope in the face of despair, pushing back against the encroaching shadow. The air crackled with raw energy, the very ground shaking violently as Abena's power was pushed back, inch by agonizing inch. Her monstrous illusions shattered like brittle glass, revealing the true, hideous face of the woman who had brought them so much pain. Without her glamour, she was a withered, ancient hag, her skin cracked like dry riverbeds, her eyes burning with an impotent fury. She snarled and screamed, guttural sounds of pure rage and frustration, her power waning as the bonds of her curse began to break under the onslaught of collective good.
And then, in a moment of absolute clarity, Kofi saw his chance. It was a fragile window, but he seized it. With a final surge of inner strength, he stepped forward through the dying tendrils of her dark magic and with a gentle but firm hand, placed the golden fruit to Abena's trembling, withered lips. "Taste the sweetness," he said again, his voice now imbued with the authority of the land itself, firm and unyielding, "or leave us in peace." Abena, weakened, exposed and desperate, recoiled. The dark aura that had clung to her for so long dissipated entirely, peeling away like dead skin. A scream, raw and unearthly, tore from her throat as she succumbed to the inherent power of the fruit, a power that represented everything she abhorred. She fell to her knees, her strength utterly drained, her ancient magic broken. The villagers, empowered by the incredible bravery of the young boy, surged forward, not with violence, but with a unified determination. They moved in to restrain her, their faces grim, their hands firm. The witch, defeated and powerless, could only watch as the life force she had sought to claim turned against her, not consuming her, but utterly stripping her of her malevolence. Kofi, with a final, deliberate act of courage, whispered the words that would seal her fate, words that Mama Zawadi had shared, ancient incantations that bound evil to the earth. The very ground beneath Abena opened up, not with a roar, but with a soft, hungry sigh. She was swallowed by the earth she had hoped to claim as her own, a final shudder passing through the village as the fissure sealed itself, leaving no trace of her ever having been there. Kumbungu breathed a collective sigh of relief, a deep, cleansing breath. The shadow she had cast for so long was finally lifted, and the air was once again filled with the sweet promise of a new dawn, of peace reclaimed.
The boy's bravery became the stuff of legend, whispered in awe around evening fires, sung in rhythmic chants by the women, a beacon of hope in the face of darkness. And though the villagers knew that evil, in its many forms, might come again, they also knew that as long as there were hearts as pure and strong as Kofi's, they would never truly be alone in their fight. The story of the brave boy and the witch with the tinted torch became a cautionary tale, passed from generation to generation, a reminder of both peril and profound courage. Yet, Kofi's victory was not without its cost. The confrontation had left him profoundly drained, not just physically, but spiritually. The scars of the battle etched themselves not only on his soul, but subtly on his body as well. A faint, silvery line on his conch, where he had first touched Abina's fingers. A deeper shadow in his thoughtful eyes. His eyes, once so bright and full of innocent life, now bore the quiet weight of the horrors he had faced. But they were also filled with the newfound wisdom, a quiet strength, and a deep understanding of the delicate balance between light and shadow. This profound change made him a natural leader among his peers and soon among the elders too.
The village of Kumbungu began to heal. The blighted crops miraculously grew strong again, their leaves unfurling green and vibrant. The livestock recovered, their lowing filling the pens once more. The laughter of children, clear and joyous, filled the air, replacing the previous silence. Yet Kofi couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unresolved, a piece of the puzzle that still eluded him. He would dream of Abena, her final chilling words echoing in his mind. "This isn't over, child. I will return." He felt her presence, a faint, lingering coldness on the edges of his awareness, a promise of a future confrontation. The months passed, turning into seasons, and the whispers of Abena faded into the background of daily life, becoming a distant, fading memory for most. But Kofi knew better than to let his guard down. He trained tirelessly, dedicating himself to the pursuit of knowledge and strength. He studied diligently under Mama Zawadi, who became his mentor, learning the intricate ways of the ancients, the subtle energies of the earth, the protective chants, and the hidden strengths of every plant and stone. He honed his spirit, meditating beneath the ancient baobab trees, connecting with the deep roots of his land. He prepared for the day she might return, knowing that next time she would seek not just revenge, but utter annihilation. The villagers came to depend on him. His calm demeanor and unwavering resolve a source of comfort. He became Kumbungu's protector, a living embodiment of the courage they had found within themselves, a shield against the darkness.
One moonlit night, as Kofi, now a young man, slender but strong, patrolled the outskirts of the village, his senses acutely attuned to the whispers of the wind, he stumbled upon a clue that sent a shiver down his spine. It was a symbol, carved crudely but unmistakably into the bark of an ancient marula tree, a mark he had seen only in his dreams, a symbol Abina had used to invoke her darkest magic. It pulsed with a faint, malevolent energy, unmistakable. He knew she was coming back, and he knew that next time she would be more powerful, more cunning, more desperate than ever before. With renewed determination, Kofi gathered his allies, those he had trusted before, and new ones who had seen his strength and believed in him. They fortified the village, not just with physical barriers of thorn and wood, but with protective energies, imbued with the purity of the land and the collective power of goodwill. They trained together, sharing stories of past courage and strategizing for the looming threat. The women prepared protective charms, the men sharpened their resolve, and the children, taught by Kofi, learned the importance of unity and vigilance.
As the nights grow longer and the air colder, a distinct chill settling over the savannah, the villagers braced themselves for the inevitable showdown.
They stood united, their spirits bolstered by Kofi's unyielding courage, a living shield against the encroaching darkness. And when Abena finally did return, heralded by a sudden, unnatural silence that fell upon the land, she found not a cowering village, but a community ready to fight, a village that would not go quietly into the night. For they had found their champion, and in him their own strength.
The final confrontation was a spectacle that would be remembered for centuries, woven into the very fabric of Kumbungu's history. The sky was alight with the clash of powers, blinding flashes of light meeting swirling vortexes of shadow. The earth trembled violently, groaning as the forces of good and evil waged war. Kofi, now a true warrior, stood at the forefront, his eyes gleaming with the light of 1,000 suns, reflecting the burning defiance in his heart.
The battle was fierce and relentless, each side giving no quarter. Abena, fueled by a renewed thirst for vengeance, unleashed her full horrifying power. She conjured storms, summoned illusions of deepest despair, and assailed them with ancient curses. But Kofi and his allies, moving as one, met her with a coordinated defense, their combined will a force she could not shatter. They used their knowledge of the land, their unity, and the protective magic taught by Mama Zawadi. But as dawn finally broke, painting the eastern sky with the soft hues of rebirth, the tide began to turn. With every step, every chanted incantation, every drop of sweat and shed breath, Kofi and his allies pushed Abena back towards the very pit that had once swallowed her, the land itself rejecting her malice. In the end, it was not just Kofi's courage that prevailed, though it was immense. It was the collective strength of a community that had faced its deepest fears, found its voice, and stood together. As the witch, screaming in defeat, was once again swallowed by the earth, vanishing without a trace, the villagers cheered, their voices raw with triumph. It was a triumph that transcended the mere victory of one over another. It was the victory of hope over despair, of unity over division.
The story of Kofi and Abena serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of courage, unity, and the indomitable human spirit. It is a tale of how a single act of bravery, born of innocence, can spark a flame that illuminates even the darkest corners of the world, driving back shadows that threaten to engulf. And as the dust settled and the village returned to its rhythmic routine, forever changed but stronger, Kofi, now their elder and protector, knew that he had set a precedent that would guide and protect his people for generations to come. A legacy of light in the heart of the savannah.